Anyway, the collective group of bacteria, along with all the other life forms, we call those microbiota. Microbiota is all of them. It's not just the bacteria. So that's the terminology that scientists use. I'm going to have a few boring long words, and if it's too much and you have questions about it, just come back with me at the end and I'll explain it. So the term microbiome is not just the bacteria. It is the genes of those bacteria and the bacteria. So it's everything. It's what's collected in there. To give you an idea of how important that is, okay, the human genome has been mapped, and we have 22,000 genes. Each person has 22,000 genes. That sounds like a lot, okay? But when you look at bacteria, they have 3.3 million genes. So it's about 150 times more genetics that go into the bacteria and little microbes that live in you than you have yourself. And that's why it's really going to determine your health, almost more so what you eat than your genes. Your genes do, I'm not saying your genes don't serve a purpose, they do. 22,000 is a lot, each of them does something, but way more genes come from the organisms that are inside of you. So that's why that's so important.
That can be affected by what you eat.
Yeah. Okay, so not only does the microbiome contain bacteria, like I told you before, it's also viruses, fungi, and archaea, which are just other life forms that live inside of you. There's one study that found that people had over 300 species of just bacteria inside of them. Hi, help yourself. So in terms of genes, from human to human, we are almost identical. We're 99.9% identical in terms of the genomes from human to human. But the microbes can be 90% different between me and her. So just because my genes are very similar to hers, my health can be very different. Even if we're the same weight, same height, do the same exercise, all that stuff. The microbes can really make a difference because it could be 90% different between person and person. Okay, so that's, some of these are not really, I'm going to kind of skip some of the ones so that we can just focus on the important stuff today. That's really on your handout too. So foods are irradiated. That basically means that most of your produce and even your raw foods go through a cooking process to kill the bad bacteria, but it kills a lot of good bacteria too. So that's the reason why people like probiotics, because we cook almost everything, and we even the raw things that we buy, they could have been cooked too, to some extent. So what is dysbiosis? Dysbiosis, basically what it means is, if you've ever heard of Candida or C. diff, MRSA, whatever, it's an overgrowth of the bad bacteria. So everybody has a little bit of E. coli, let's say, living in their gut. That's actually healthy to have a tiny bit of it, different kinds. But when you get an overgrowth of it, it can cause a disease and illness. So they call that dysbiosis. Okay, so again, all of the different parts of your body, your blood, your even breast tissue they found has some bacteria in it, some living organisms in it. Pretty much every part of your body has little living organisms in there. Okay, so we're not going to talk about infant gut today, but I'll go over that another time, maybe. All right. So, with obesity, what they found when they studied that is that a person who, they studied kids that were skinny, kids that were overweight, kids that were obese, and they found that there's certain bacteria that are higher in the obese kids, lower in the lean kids. And one of them was the good one was bifidobacteria. This one, bifidobacterium, it was higher in the skinnier people. So we know bifidobacteria is good, and that's why you're going to see it in some of your probiotics. I'll show you some of those products after, and show you how to read the label and everything like that. Find out what's in your food. Okay, so scientists in Mexico, this is another study, they compared obese people to skinny people. Again, they found that the obese people had more of a couple different strains of bacteria Clostridium leptum and Lactobacillus. Particularly, Lactobacillus can be good in small amounts, but if you have, like I said, an overgrowth of some, it's not good. It could become a problem. So, America's fat. Basically, most of us are overweight and obese. Like if you're in America, you're living here, it's not just, a few people, it's most adults are overweight and obese. Part of that is that we don't exercise. I mean, we just sit. I'm bad too because I'll sit at my job a lot. So if you're sitting for 8 hours straight, that's part of it. But, so there's a lot you can do as far as what you eat. And then also worldwide, 1.3 billion adults are overweight. And it's becoming more of a problem than people who are starving and not able to eat. So it's becoming more popular. And again, so obesity is associated with changes in that bacteria in your gut. These are more studies that basically found that. Okay, so I'm going to get into some of the boring sciencey terminologies. Basically, so dietary carbohydrates. I have here some of the popular prebiotics, the common foods that people eat that are prebiotic. Vegetables do have some, like lettuce, and vegetables do have a little bit of carbohydrate, but they're very low in carbohydrate. So it's actually whole grains and beans that have a lot more of the type of carbohydrate that you need to feed a lot of bacteria and to build a lot of good bacteria in your gut. So what that is fiber. So lettuce has fiber, but if you have a whole cup of lettuce, it's only going to be about 1 gram. You have a whole cup of beans, it's 16 grams. So it's 16 times more fiber. And then there's something called resistant starch, which you'll find in things like oatmeal, brown rice, even white rice has it. And then also quinoa, starchy foods, things that you think of as starchy foods. What happens is the bacteria in your gut that are good, they'll feed on that fiber, and then they produce something called short-chain fatty acids. I have it as SCFA. So those short-chain fatty acids in a certain proportion can be anti-inflammatory. So the more you get a certain amount that's good, it can be anti-inflammatory. And some of the names of those, just in case you've heard of it, acetate, propionate, and butyrate. Butyrate happens to be one of the really good ones that you want your gut to produce. Butyrate is good. So the rate and amount depends on the amount of living species you have in your gut and how much food you're giving it and how much time that food takes to pass through you. So butyrate is the major energy source for colonocytes. Basically, that means your colon cells, they get fed by the substances that your microbes produce when they eat fiber. So if you were to do a ketogenic diet and you eat no fiber, basically, because very low in fiber, might have maybe 4 or 5 grams. I eat around 25 to 30 at least, sometimes 50 to 60. If I eat a lot one day, a lot of beans, which I do sometimes eat like a lot of beans, it's 60 grams of fiber. Compare that to a person who is eating a ketogenic diet, they're almost eating none. So that food that they need to feed their gut, it's not there. They're starving those colon cells, and that's why you can get things like colon cancer, diverticulitis, inflammation, inflammatory bowel disease. We're finding that those are more related to the gut bacteria than what we thought before. So acetate enters, and then that's just talking about peripheral tissues and things like that. But I would say that this is a really important one. It's butyrate. Propionate does go into the liver, so that could be one that could really help relieve things like fatty liver, stuff like that. You wanna help feed your organs and keep them strong and things like that. So, okay. So the presence of carbohydrates, it's essential to favor metabolic activity in the direction of carbohydrate fermentation. What that all means is you have to eat carbs in order for those bacteria to survive. They can't survive without carbohydrate. And just, as a side note, my diet is very high in carbohydrate because you're eating things like oatmeal, brown rice, quinoa, and beans. Those foods are high in carbohydrate. But, yeah. I'm not telling you to drink soda or eat candy or put a bunch of sugar, or sweet tea or whatever. I'm not telling you to have all that, cake and candy and all that. That's not what I'm telling you. That's not what I eat every day. What I eat most of the time is, those things that are whole grain and all that. Whole foods. Okay, so this is a really good graph. It's here. I can send you some more of these slides. If you just email me, I'll send you the whole thing. But I did like a short version of it on your little handout. Because I know it's a lot of information. Okay, so what I'm trying to show you here is that a lot of people come to me and they say, well, me or my friend is doing a low-carb diet. And people who are doing the low-carb diet will say, no, but I'm good because I eat a lot of fiber, I eat a lot of vegetables. Okay, so again, raw spinach only has 1 gram of fiber in a cup. So you can have 6 cups of it. Great, that's 6 grams of fiber, but it's nothing compared to eating a cup of beans. Even 1 cup to 6 cups of spinach, the beans are going to beat it out like 10 times over. So spinach, cooked spinach does have more because you're taking more of the vegetable, shrinking it down, taking the water out by cooking it, and you get a little more fiber. But it's only 4 grams. That's really not enough compared to some of these other foods that have like 16 grams.
So you're getting more just because you cooked it. You kind of condensed it.
Yeah, if you cook vegetables like things like tomatoes and spinach and greens, they shrink a lot.
Yes.
So then you only have to eat a little bit, and it becomes more concentrated. But what I'm trying to tell you is that doesn't matter, because 4 grams is nothing compared to 16 grams if you're, talking about a couple cups of food. So definitely the beans, and then even dried fruit does have more because it's concentrated, but it is going to have more calories, so you have to kind of keep track of how many calories you eat and stuff like that. But anyway, you pretty much can't be on a low-carb diet and eat a lot of fiber. Because if you're on a low-carb diet, you're just eating these things. There is no way that you can compete with someone like me who eats beans and whole grains every day. There's just no way you're going to be feeding your gut well. You're not. So that's why when people come to me and they're like, oh, but it helped me lose weight. That's great. You can lose weight eating anything as long as let's say you have 2 cookies a day and you don't eat for the rest of the day. You can lose weight doing that. That doesn't mean that's healthy. It's not healthy.
So as far as like carbohydrates are concerned, you're telling a lot about whole grains and how those are really good. Well, what about just, like let's say like white bread or white pasta? Are you completely against that, or is that
No, I mean, if you're choosing between white rice and vegetables and a cheeseburger or a steak, I want you to eat the white rice and the vegetables. Because the white rice does still have something called resistant starch, even though it has less fiber than brown rice. They both have resistant starch. And that white rice is the reason why Japanese people and Chinese people have much better health than we do. Far better health. They're eating white rice every day. They don't eat brown rice there. They don't. Now, I'm not telling you that you should choose white rice if you like brown rice, if you're able to eat the brown rice. I know some people don't like brown rice. If you don't like it, fine. You can have the white rice. But it's not going to be as good for you. I know you don't like whole wheat pasta. But honestly, if you cook things a little bit longer, like the brown rice takes longer, the pasta might take a little bit longer, it will soak up a lot of the juices and the sauces, and to me it doesn't taste that much different. Whole wheat. Whole grain. If it's whole grain of any kind, it's good. Brown rice pasta. There's such a thing as brown rice pasta. That's whole grain too.
They have now the lentil and chickpea pasta.
Yeah. All of that's great. All of that's great. So anyway, let me just get to the end here, and then I'm going to go over some of these things. Again, the average American will eat about 18 grams of fiber a day. I usually will have between 40 and 50 on a good day of grams of fiber.
And then I've heard that too much fiber is not good for you either. Not true. Okay. They say it's like
go to Africa where people are eating like all sorts of crazy roots and things like that all day long, and beans, and they're eating more than me. And a lot of them, the people who are, eating enough food, not the starving ones, obviously, are healthier than I am. I mean, they're really healthy. And you find those people will have less heart disease and less things that we have here. Very common here, not common over there. There's no way to get too much fiber. Yeah. I mean, I would say don't take supplements. Eat your fiber in food. Because if you do take supplements, then you might get not enough nutrition and just too much fiber without. Eat the food. Eat the whole food. So anyway, my point is that the average American is actually going to get more fiber than the low carb person, the ketogenic person, and the paleo person, because they're not eating any of the grains or the beans. At least if you're an average American, you can have some beans. I mean, they don't every day, but I'm just saying you can. So these are some studies. Basically what they found was low fiber intake, which is what you would do on a low carb diet, that actually caused inflammation, chronic inflammation. High fiber intake is associated with, remember the word butyrate that I said before? It's that short chain fatty acid that your gut makes, your bacteria make when you eat fiber. So high fiber is associated with butyrate, and then butyrate producing bacteria which lower the risk of cancer. So the more butyrate you have, the lower risk of colon cancer specifically, because that's where it really feeds the good cells there. Yeah, to me it really does. So eating greater than 15 grams of fiber can reduce inflammation by 49%. That's pretty crazy. With less than 5 grams a day, compared with less than 5 grams of fiber a day in the cancer survivors. So they were testing some people who had cancer, which means that if you already have cancer, you have inflammation. It's related to inflammation in your body. So that makes a lot of sense.
Seaweed has a lot of fiber.
Seaweed has some, but it has a lot of other really good things too, like iodine, sometimes a little bit of omega-3, and just a lot of nutrients that are good. The fiber is not the most important thing in there, you know. It has other things that are really good. I would say seaweed is great. I put it in the book for people if they want to eat it every day to have a little bit. Yeah. Oh, and that's the reason. Oh, nori? Yeah. So basically, the more fiber you eat, the lower your inflammation. That's what those studies found. Okay, and then probiotics. These are the probiotics. The yogurt, kefir. This is the one that you gave me. Kefir, however you want to say it. Kefir. And then there's also things like miso and kimchi, different ethnic foods that people here don't really eat. But there are other probiotics that you might not have heard of. And basically a lot of the studies have found that doing probiotics are good. They do help. But no, well, yes, there are supplements in those studies, but even just eating the yogurt, you could do that. Yeah, you don't have to take a pill. Well, it's not enough if you don't have enough fiber, because what happens is, here what I'm saying is, it doesn't matter how much of this probiotic stuff you take, if you don't have enough fiber, you're not going to be able to support a permanent change in your gut. It's not going to change. So what's happening in here might temporarily, while you're eating the probiotic, it might help lower inflammation when you're eating it, but then once you stop eating the yogurt, it goes away. If you're on a low-carb diet, most definitely, eating these probiotics and buying these probiotic foods, to me, I would say it's a waste of money. Don't waste your money. Because you're not eating enough fiber to really keep the bacteria alive in your gut. So, yeah, I do have vegan yogurts, actually. This one is a vegan kefir, but, so I have a bunch of them in here. I'm going to show you. So yeah, basically I'm just saying that the microbiome is really important for your health, and that dysbiosis or overgrowth of the bad stuff, that's linked to obesity and other problems. And Americans don't eat enough fiber. So there's your end game.